Starting up in just a second. All right, so let's get going. What I'm going to do is spend probably between now and about 1 o'clock finishing this. I'm not going to go into chapter 8 today. I'll start with that tomorrow morning. All right. It's just, going 5 or 6 like this is way too much for me to expect from anybody. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do before I even do and start putting in my buttons is I want to declare and initialize my one program constant. And that's just going to be something I usually call mine len, L-E-N, so const int len. It's the length of the array. And I'm going to set that equal to 25. All right. I made a couple of my variables global, just so you know. So that'll be the array. That will be the sum and the average. Now, I made mine a double, all right? And lately I've been using a lot more rather than doubles. I've been basically using a lot of decimals. We could have made that a decimal just as easily. It doesn't matter one way or the other, is what I'm saying. All right. Well, one thing that I want to do is I want to be able to fill the array. All right, that should make sense. So in other words, when I click this button right there, I want to fill the array. So let's call fill array. And I'll put that right below the one that I'm doing right now. So private void fill array, just like you see, whoops, right there. All right. Now, this really and truly isn't hard. But remember, I do want in here, I want these numbers to be random. Okay, so remember, we do our random, rand, equal new random. Now, you don't have to call it rand. You can call it whatever you want. Technically, if you make it lowercase, you can even call it random if you want. I just, for whatever reason, always call mine rand. All right, so I'm going to put in a loop. Oops. Again. Now, there's actually two things that I want to do in here. All right. One of them you already know. So I want to say numbers LCV equal RND, or RAND, I should say, RAND dot next and I want numbers between 0 and 100. So I'll put 101 in there. Okay. That'll go and give me my 25 random numbers. But also what I want to make sure that I do is I want to immediately, as soon as I add a number, boom, I want to take that number and I want to put it in here. All right. So when I get done, I want there to be 25 numbers in there. See, I don't need that anymore. So let's get rid of that. So the name of my list box, LST, numbers, and notice how the IntelliSense kicks in. It says everything that I put in there is in 25 items. And I want to add to my items what you see right there. All right, let's see if that works. Now there's a problem with it, and I'll show it to you right away. So let me do a file, save all, run the program, and let's see when I click this button if I get 25 numbers in here. I do. Looks like my numbers are a little bit too big, so, but you can see that. All right, the problem though is what I want to have happen is when I click it again, I want it to clear first. And right now it's not clearing. So now I've clicked it about 5 times and I've got about 500 numbers in here. That's not what I want. So clearing this thing is almost ridiculously easy. I'm going to go to my clear button next. And I'm going to put in here, I'll just call it clear list box. Okay. Private void clear list box. And all I have to do is exactly what it says. lst.items.clear. That's it. So before I go and fill this thing up, I want to call clear list box every time. Okay. Then I can go fill it up. Now, let me go back here and let me make these smaller, the numbers that are in here. Let's try making them about half the size they were. So I'm going to make them, in fact, let's make them 14. I'll see if now all of them fit on the screen. There's my numbers. But notice if I click clear, it clears, new numbers, clear. But now if I click here and I click new again, it cleared all what was there. So now I can go and add numbers as much, however I want, and I can click clear at any time. Well, that's good. I didn't do a lot of work and I got pretty much done right there. So let's just go on. I guess I'm going to go down. So that's fine. So sort ascending. Well, we had this before, if you remember. And all we did was we said array dot sort, and we wanted to sort our array that's called numbers. All right. But, okay, after we do that, so now it should be sorted. Okay. Do we need to do anything else? Let's look. So we do this. We got 25 numbers, sort ascending. Didn't work. Well, we basically have to tell it that what we want it to do is we want it to sort, but we want it to replace what was in there. All right, so we want to sort it, but again, we want it to replace what is in there. All right. Well, one thing about writing this, that's giving us new numbers. That's not what we want, but after we go in and we sort this, then we want it to display our array again. All right, so I'm going to call this display array. And I'm, oops, a lot of A's in there. And I'm going to get an error because it hasn't been written. So let's write private void display array. And all I want to do in here is write a for loop, kind of like we did before, but just display the numbers. So I can grab this, put it in here. All right. I don't want to generate new numbers. I just want to display the ones I've got. So let's see if that works. Now think about what we just have done so far. For fill array, all right, we're setting up our random numbers. We're clearing the list box in case there is something in there. We are telling it 25 times to generate a new number, take that new number and put it into our list box. That's fill array. Clear list box or clear calls clear list box, which just clears out whatever's in there. Sort ascending runs the sort method on our array. Then it calls display array to basically put it in here again. Looks like I somehow removed a curly brace. Now, guess what? It's going to do the same thing. Almost. We already did this earlier. Gotcha. What the heck I'm doing here, I don't know. Let's see. All right, let me remove this. See if I've screwed it up or not screwed it up. All right. All right, that is displaying our array. That's what we want. This is our sorting in ascending order. We grab this. But after we sort it in ascending order, let's reverse it. So let's see now what we have. Hopefully I didn't screw it up, but we'll find out in a minute. All right, I have removed something accidentally, so let's see. We don't need any of this. We don't need any of this. There. There we go. All right, so there's new numbers. Not going to try clearing yet. Let's sort these in ascending order. Okay, again, what did I forget to do? It is in ascending order, but I forgot to call clear list box first. So let me do that. I can do it right here. All right, so there's my numbers. There they are in ascending order. 236, then notice 89, 98, 99. There they are in descending order. All right, I've already got 4 of these done. All right, so that's pretty good. Looking ahead then, the search I'm going to put off for just a second because it's the hardest one. And there's some stuff I'm going to have to there. So, all right, the exit, well, we've already got our exit program or not. And hopefully I've got that in that example that I used before. There it is. So for exit program or not, there's that code. All right, so what do we have left? Sum. Well, you know how easy sum was. All right, but there's an issue in here that we have now that we did not have previously. What do I mean? I want to show you what I mean because I want you to understand this. When we ran this earlier, when we ran this as a console app, we were in control. It called this, then 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 it called the etc. Boom, 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 boom. It called all 8 routines. Now we have no guarantee over which one of these is going to be done first. In fact, did you notice when we started, there's nothing in there? Wouldn't it be nice if there was something in there when we started? I think there would be. So what is this doing? This is calling fill array. All right. Well, what if I come in and in my forms load event, now there's numbers in there. That's nice. All right. So I can immediately clear or sort it in ascending or sort it in descending, or I can exit. That's good. I like that. So that was one little program modification that we made that was easier. Okay. However, when we click sum, there's a few things we're going to have to keep in mind. What we want to do is we want to add everything that's in here. Should be pretty obvious. All right. So in other words, when we go to sum, we'll calculate the sum and we'll write it right down below. All right. And we're eventually going to print this out into a message box. So as I've oftentimes done, I'm going to write my own show message. All right. And these will be information. There's no errors in here. All right. So I want to print that out. Now, think about this. This is where you start becoming a programmer. All right. You have to think about what can possibly in here that could conceivably at least be wrong. What do I mean? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. And that is, first of all, what happens if I run the program like this? I click clear and then I click sum. I don't really have anything to sum. I mean, an easy way to fix that is I'm going to initialize, I've already initialized the sum to 0. I made that one of my global variables. Okay. But I could check to see if that was empty. So I could check to see if it had nothing in it. I could do that. And if it did, I could say there's nothing to sum. So let's do that. Okay. So list box dot numbers dot count. I don't want to say if it's greater than 0. I want to say if it's equal to 0. And if it is, I'll call my show message and I'll just say there is nothing to add. Now, technically there is, because even though I've removed that from that, there's still something in the array. But I don't want to do that because that could be confusing to the user. So I'm going to say in here, list box, make it all caps. List box currently empty. All right. First of all, let's see if it works. Okay, there is nothing to add. That's good. All right. What do I want to do next? That's actually up to me. I'm just going to return. But since it's a void and it'll return anyway, there's nothing to do in here. But I want to put in other stuff down here. So I will return. Now, again, we're starting to get into where I want to be able to explain stuff to you that hopefully at least makes sense to you. The first thing is right here. If I get down to here, there has to be something in the list box. And since there's always 25 things or 0 in there, there has to be 25 things in there. All right. So if I get down there, I could make that an else, but I really don't need to use the word else. So I can just come in here and write myself one of my handy dandy little for loops like this. All right. But now all I'm going to say is the sum plus equals numbers LCV. That's it. Now, the other thing I want to do too, do I have to do this? I believe a lot in preventative coding. All right. And in other words, I want to test for possible errors. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, if this is the case, I'm going to reset the sum back equal to 0. Right? Because I'm just about to recalculate it. Okay. So now I'm going to call show message again. And I'm just going to say the sum of all array elements is, and I will put in here plus sum dot, the sum rather, to string. All right. And then for a message, I'll just put in here sum of all array elements, something like that. Not perfect, but it should be okay. And there's nothing more to do to my knowledge. So let's check that. So there's my numbers. All right. I'm not going to manually add them. I could bring up the calculator and manually add them, but I'm going to click sum. And it says the sum of the array elements is 1059. So we could do that, but I'm going to just at least hope that is the sum. All right. So that's done. That's pretty good. All right. So what's next in here? Well, average. All right. Now, the thing is, what if they click average before they click sum? All right. Because what we really want to do in here, what we actually want to do in here, I'm going to move this down. So what we actually want to do in here, in this average, is we basically want to do the sum. All right. But now think about this. If we already have a sum, we don't need to do it again. All right. So if the sum is not equal 0, then it's pretty easy. The average is then equal to the sum, and I'm going to make that a double because I want to make this to 2 decimal places. So the sum divided by numbers.length. I can cast them both. It doesn't matter. So the average is now equal to that. Now, what doesn't it like here? I've got here this, and it says it does not exist in the current context. Did I call it the average or the AVG? I called it the AVG. So that's on me. So this should be the AVG. All right. And now I can come in and do this, where it says the average, I'll just say the AVG of all array elements is, and that's the average. Now I do want to, let me move this down, put this over a couple lines. Probably should have done that here too. All right. Now I will put this to 2 decimal places. All right. And I want this to say average. But once I do that, I'm done. So I can just return. Now that only is going to handle the case, that will only handle the case of if I already have a sum. All right. So let's try that. There's our numbers. There's our sum. So look at our sum. It looks like it's 1549. If I take 1549, I divide that by 25, I should get, if I did that right, 61.96. Well, I did something wrong. But it's 53.96, so I just must have typed in a wrong number. Let's try it again. So the sum is, oh, that's 1349. So try that again. So 1349 divide that by 25, and I get 53.96. All right, so again, average 53.96. That's good. Now, where can this be problematic? Okay, I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go here. All right, and it says the average is 53.96. Well, you know what? Believe it or not, it's working, because even though I've removed this, I'm working on the array. So what you'll notice is if I put in new numbers, all right, I've got them here. And if I click average, it remembers the old one, which isn't good. But if I go to do sum again, it's now 1469. And the average is now, whatever this is, 58.76. But if I clear this, it still remains. I don't know if I want that or not. All right. I mean, how can I get around that? Well, think about it. Okay. And that is, if the sum is not equal to 0, you do all this. Cool. What if it is equal to 0? Well, here, if it was equal to 0, we just did a message that said there's nothing to add. What if we did that same thing? All right. And what if I come down here and say this? Okay, well, if it's not equal to 0, it is equal to 0. So I really don't need this. I can move this. And I can move this and this. Now I said there is nothing to add. I'll say here there's nothing to average. And I'm just going to say list box currently empty like we did before. All right. Now we can do it that way. And we can check with the sum like that. This will work. All right, but I think even with nothing in here, with no sum, all right, there is nothing to average. List box currently empty. Well, that isn't right. So we're doing kind of the right thing, but not really. So in other words, okay, if sum is 0, we may, I'm sorry, if average is 0, we may have to go in here. If the sum is 0, well, we could always call the sum again, right? We could calculate the sum. All right. So if the sum is 0, we could come in here and we could calculate the sum. All right. And this will work, but there's still something that's a little quirky about this. All right. What do I mean? All right. Well, first of all, one thing that we might want to do is to figure this out, because now if it was empty and we call calculate the sum, now there is something. The sum isn't 0. So we could come in here and say if the sum is not equal to 0, just do this right away. All right. So just do that. All right. Then we can say an else, and we can say calculate the sum. And I actually removed the wrong one here. So this should say G. I don't know why, but my internet, when it gets hot like this, will just drop occasionally. So if you hear me stop for a minute, that's why I am. So the average is, and I'm going to say plus the average dot toString with N2. Now, this should work, but there's still something about it that isn't great. All right, so let's do this. Let's run it. So file, save all. All right, we've got that in here. We have no average right now. So average, it says the sum is 1073, which is 00. Well, something is screwed up in there. All right, so let's see what it is. Well, what's happening is it's calling calculate the sum. All right, and it's not doing the average. So we need to actually grab this and put that there. There's still a small problem with this. Maybe you've already noticed it. All right, so I'm in here. I have no sum right now. I click average, and it says 1220. The average is 4880. Well, that's okay. The sum is 1220. Okay, so that's okay. But there's something we can do that you've already learned how to do, where we can make this a little bit easier for ourselves. All right. And what the heck am I even talking about? Well, when we call calculate the sum, we're calling it there and we're calling it here. So we're calling it either when we click the sum button, or we're calling it because we don't yet have a sum for the average. And if you remember, one thing we did before was we passed in a number here. So I'm going to pass in a 1 there, and I'm going to pass in a 2 right there. Now, it's not going to like it because this isn't expecting a number. So we'll put in here int n for number. It doesn't matter. Now, this all works. So here there's nothing to sum. Boom, we return. Here we add all this stuff. Okay, great. But we only want to show this message if that n that we entered I'm going to say if n equal 1, then I'm going to grab that show message. All right, now let's try it one last time in here. So file, save all. There is no sum, so I'm going to click average. And it says the average is 50.00. That's kind of cool because that means the sum was 1250. That means my average actually in here is 50. That's kind of neat. Doesn't happen very often. All right, I can sort it. I can clear. I can do so. This is done. This is done. This is done. This is done. These two are done. This is done. I want to do lowest, highest, median, range, and search. That's what's left. Well, the lowest is going to be pretty doggone easy. All right. Why am I saying that? Well, we've already done it in our last program. Okay. Now, just like before, okay, if we click lowest and there's nothing in here and I click lowest, there's nothing for me to go and work with. All right. So in other words, if I come back into here, let's grab that. So this is our lowest, and I'm just going to say, find the lowest value. Okay. We'll put it right below here. All right. Before we did this, we said, let's see, where our sum, if the count was nothing, there was nothing to add. Well, kind of in the same way, if the count is nothing, all right, how about just there are no values? So we'll just return if there's nothing in there. Otherwise, again, we don't need an else because we've already got a return in there. So we can, again, just like we have done earlier, all right, when we came in and we ran this loop, let's run the loop, but we'll make some changes to it. All right, I'm going to put in here int lowest equal, and let's make it numbers 0, kind of like the way we did it before. All right, so otherwise, we want to go from 1, all right, to the end and say, if our current 1, which would be numbers LCV, LCV, if that is less than lowest, all right, if that's less than lowest, lowest is going to be equal to numbers LCV. And then finally, at the end, we want to do a show message and have it say the lowest number in the array is lowest dot to string. Whoopsie, sorry. Again, let me put this over multiple lines so you can read it. And we'll have to say lowest array element value, something like that. All right. Now, I'm literally rewriting this on the fly from what I had done earlier. So here, and that is when I run this, if I click, first of all, let's sort it in ascending order. Okay. 3 should be the lowest. And it says 3, so that works. But if you remember, I said earlier that isn't there a better way of doing this? Well, we know if we get down to here, there already is something in there. So what we can do, we don't have to do this, but what we can do is come in here and I can comment this out. I'm going to leave it in there because it does work, but I'm going to comment it out. And now I'm going to call our okay, here's the problem. I want to call the click event. I want to call the click event for my sort ascending button. And you can do that, but it's ugly. So I'm going to change this array.sort. And I'm going to call the new routine called sort ascending. And I'm going to put it right below this. And there's my ascending sort. All right, no, that should just say sort ascending. There we go. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to grab all of this code. And now from here, I'm going to call sort descending. All right. So the other way that we can do this, all right, you can see how big the program's getting in here. All right. We can do this and it'll work just fine. Or we can now come in here and say sort ascending. All right. And now the lowest one is always going to be, all right, it's always going to be numbers 0 dot toString. Let's test that out and see if that one works. So sort it, well, let's not even sort it right now. All right, let's just grab lowest. And it says it's 2. Well, there it is. It did the sorting for us. All right, so that one's done. Well, you probably have already guessed this, but I'm going to make another routine right below the one that we've got, make some changes to it, starting with find the largest value. I don't like lowest. I don't know why I call that lowest. I'm going to change this to lowest value. I think that sounds better. All right. So that was find the smallest value, which was good God, come on. Boy, oh boy. So this will be find the largest value unless I goofed it up, but we'll find out in a second. So this will be largest. Here we'll call sort descending. This would have to change, just so you know, this would have to be greater than largest. And this would be largest as well. So this will now say largest. All right. Let's see if that one works. All right, I could have screwed something up, but we'll find out in a second. So not sorted yet. Let's pick highest. Okay, it doesn't like something. So either I'm not showing it. That's probably what I forgot to do, but I don't know. So let's find the largest value. So let's first come to here. There it is. I'm never calling. Find the largest value. Let's see if that was the problem. Again, not sorted. Call highest 99, and that appears to be working. All right, let's try the lowest, and it's 3. That appears to be working. So we now have finished new sum, clear average, sort ascending, lowest, sort descending, highest. Let's do the median and the range, then we'll come back and do the search. All right. For the median, we want to make sure that it is in ascending order. Then we want to grab 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, the 12th one. All right. So for median, I'm going to call sort ascending. Now it could already be an ascending order. And then I'm going to call find the median. In fact, we're going to. All right. So we're going to call find the median. All right. The first thing we're going to do is sort it in ascending order. Then I'm just going to grab a show message. And instead of the largest, oops, we're going to say the median in the array is, and this will be numbers 12. All right, let's try that one. So I'm going to click median. It's in order. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It should be 45. Let's try it again because we got a bunch of 4 row here. So let's give new numbers and try it again. Says it's 50. 0, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that appears to be working. All right. The range is one of the easier ones to do. So we'll call find the range. And we'll write it right here. All right. It doesn't matter if we do ascending or descending. I'm just going to call sort descending. Okay. So now it's in descending order. All right. And I'm going to say here int range e, and it's the biggest minus the smallest. So it's going to be numbers 0. Remember, it's in descending order, so that's the biggest one, minus numbers dot length minus 1. All right. And then we can do a show message. That says the range in the array is, now we've got that value. Well, let's see if that one works. All right. Let's just put it in descending order. It'll be anyway, but it should be 100 minus, wow, 100 minus 0. Let's try something else. Let's try new numbers and sort it again. 96, I don't want a 0 on the end. All right, 92 minus 1. It should be 1 if the range works. The range in the array is 91, so that works. So the only thing left to do is this search. All right. There's different ways that you can do this search. Just so you know, there are different ways that this can be done. I'm going to show you the way that I did it, and by no means am I claiming, I'm going to move my show message down to the bottom here. By no I complaining the way, or am I saying rather that the way I'm showing you is the best way of doing this. I am showing you again a way of doing this. I'm not going to be so brazen as to think you should do it this way because it's the best. All right. Now, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to do what's called a binary search. Imagine right now, I'm making this up. Literally, I have nothing written down. I'm going to give you 10 numbers I'm going to put down here. Not 25. I'm just going to do it with 10. And 1. All right. If I take these numbers that you see right here and I put them into order. All right, so hopefully I'll do it right. 1, 12, 19, 34, 44, 55, 56, 56, 66, and 71. All right. When you go and try to take a list of numbers and run a binary search on them, the first thing you must do is sort them into ascending order. That's what we're doing right here. I just took those numbers and basically it's like I ran that sort from our program on them. All right. The reason for this, think about a telephone book. I know probably some of you have never even know what a telephone book is. Back in the day when I was your age, if I wanted somebody's phone number, I had this thing called the white pages, and I'd have to go and look in there. So if I wanted Bill Smith's home phone number, I'd have to look in my white pages and I'd look under the S's for Smith, find the SM, the SMI, etc. Then if I knew it was William Smith, I'd have to look and look through the William Smiths. Well, we're doing the same thing here. Right now, if I show you this and I say there's 14 in there, you can pretty quickly figure out that it's not. But if you do it now in here, and I say is 14 in there, you pretty quickly, boom, like that, can tell that it's not. So when you run a binary search, it's also called a halving search. HALVING. All right. It kind of cuts this in half. Now, since we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably would cut it right there. And it would say, okay, what number are we looking for? I'm making one up here. I'm going to say we're looking for 92. Okay. So we're looking for 92. Is that it? No. So we know none of the rest of that part of the array has to be searched anymore. All right. We know that it can't be in there. So we take what's left and we cut it in half again. And we say, okay, did we find it? No. Is it greater than or less than that value? It's greater than. So now in two guesses, so to speak, those have all been eliminated. So we check, and this is all that's left. Is this the number? No, it's not there. All right. Now, this is not that different from that guessing game that we looked at earlier in the semester. If you think about it, when I played the guessing game with you, virtually always I put in 50 as my first guess. Why? Because again, let's imagine the number is 71 like this. All right. And I put in 50 and it comes back and it says higher. Now I know 50 numbers are out of the equation. It has to be between 51 and 100. All right. So I cut it in half again and I say 75 and it says lower. Now in two guesses, all right. And that's basically what we're going to do in here. Now, the only thing that you really don't have, you kind of do, but you've got to do some finagling, is there's no true input box that you have in this language. You can make a message box act like an input box, but I don't want to do that. All right. I want an actual input box in here. How am I going to do that? I want to show you right now. All right. This is the first time we've done something like this, I believe, in this class. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. All right. When we look at what's in here, in this program, it says properties, references, app.config, our form, which I never renamed, so I should. So let's rename that form as FRM array fun. I don't know, stupid name, but that's what I use. Okay. So the designer, the resx, which we'll look at in another class, and this program file. Okay, if I go over to references and click on that, and I right mouse click on it, I can choose add reference, or I can go to my project, I can right mouse click on it, I can choose add, and something, and there's a reference. They both bring up the same thing. All right. Now, C#, as I mentioned, does not have built into it, all right, an input box. But one of the languages close to it, which is Visual Basic, does have one. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to check for Microsoft. So I'm going to click right here in this box. I clicked in that box and I clicked OK. Now it just added a reference for Visual Basic in my junk. There it is. Microsoft Visual Basic. It wasn't there before. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to be able to use what's in that reference. So I'm going to jump right back up to the top of my program. And under my usings, I'm going to add a using. Using Microsoft dot, and notice one of the ones that's in here is Visual Basic. Why did I do that? Because Visual Basic does have an input box in it. And it's just, like I said, that's why I decided to do it this way. I'm not saying it's the best way or whatever. It's just the way I did it. All right. And that's always, I love that when students ask, and it's a fair question. Why'd you do this way? Why'd you do this way? And for me to come back and say, because I did, sounds pretty stupid. But a lot of times I just did it that way because I did it that way. All right. So I'm going to go down and in my search, I'm going to call perform the search. Okay. And we'll write it right below here. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sort the array. In fact, I've got my sort ascending already written. There's that. All right. Now I want to bring up this input box. And it looks a little funky, but let me put it up and then explain to you what it is. All right. So this will be our input box. This will be our text. So I'm going to put number to search for. This will be our title. So I'm going to say search. And this will be our default value. And I'll make it 50. And this will be where on the screen we want it. I might have to readjust this. All right. So I'm going to put 200 there. That may be wrong. Just where I want it to appear. All right. What did this do? Well, let's just look at, I'm not done yet, but I don't have much to do, much more to say in here anyway. But let me just save this. And now let's run it and click the search. And now that's going to have to be moved. Search, number to search for, and it's got a 50. I want to put that in here someplace. So I'll have to fandangle around with that to move it around. That's no big thing. I'll do that later. All right. Now, I'm hoping that the person came in there and put in a number, right? I'm hoping they put in a number. But what if they didn't? What if they left it blank or put in something non-numeric? Well, then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do a try catch. And I'm going to grab everything I just did and I'm going to do it in here. All right. Now, again, like I said, I'm going to have to move these. This is going to have to go. I can't remember which is the height and the width. So I'd rather than you watching me play around trying to move that on the screen, I'll just do it later. All right. But if there's an exception, I can call a show message and I can say illegal search value. And I'll put search value blank or non-numeric. And I'm just going to return. There's nothing more to do because there's nothing more for me to do. But let's see if that part works. So I come in here to search. I leave it blank. Well, it didn't like that. All right. Then I'm going to have to fix that. So let's see. Oh, here you go. So, trying to think of a fastest way to do this. If you remember, one of the things that we had earlier was we on page 219 in the book, we had this thing in there where we said if is int. It's kind of what I want to do right now. All right. But I'm going to do this. If I'm going to attempt to do this. So let's see. Yeah, I'll do it like this. If val str let's see, that's the value. Okay, I'll just do this. Int value equals val str dot convert dot to int. There you go. If it fails, it should come in now and do this. Let's see if that's the case. So search, put nothing in there. All right, illegal search value. That's good. Says it was blank or non-numeric. Same thing should happen if I put in something non-numeric. And it does. That's good. All right, that's great. So far, so good. So if that's the case, I'm going to do that and return. That's okay. Then next, I'm going to say if value is less than our min, we have a minimum and a maximum. Nope. I'll just use 0 and 100. If value is less than 0 or value is greater than 100, all right, then, so if it's either one of those, I got to add more parens in here. That's why it's complaining. I'm going to throw a new argument out of range exception. All right. And I'll have to catch that down here. All right. So where I've got illegal search value in here, let's add to this the system message. You learned how to do that. So plus fe dot message. Okay. And in here, we'll say illegal search value. I'm going to change that to out of range. All right. And I'm going to put in here again, the message. All right. Now search value out of range. So let's run it again and put in a value, try putting in a value that's less than 0 and one that's greater than 100 and see if that works. Whoop, doesn't like something. So search, I'm going to put in a value of -2 out of range. Good, that's exactly what we want. And I'm going to try it again with a value greater than 100. And the same message. Good, it's all working. All right, so the only thing to do then is to do the search. All right. What will happen is if it finds the value in here, if it actually finds it, all right, it's going to return where in the array it was found. If it doesn't find it, all right, if it doesn't find the value, it's going to return, it should be a negative number, and typically it's -1. So I'm going to make another variable. It says int result equal, and I'm going to call array dot binary search. All right. And it says in here, the array, that's numbers. And what are we searching for? Well, that's value. So this result is either going to be less than 0, which means the number wasn't found in there, or it's going to be that it was found. And if it is found, it'll tell me what position in the array it was found at. So if result is less than 0, all right, we're going to do our show message. and it'll just say the value was, was not found in the array. Value, come on, Jeffrey. Value not found. All right, so let's purposely search for something we know that's not in there. So I'm just going to put in ascending to begin with, so it's easier. So I'm going to check for 20, which I know is not in there. All right, so I'm going to search for 20. Says the value 20 was not found in the array. I need a space in there, but it's okay. Value not found. That's good. So that's working. All right. So we've got this, else it was in there. So the value was, I'm going to put was in capitals here, was not. Oops. So I'm going to say was found in the array at location. And that's what this result is. So result dot toString and value was found. All right, believe it or not, we're finished, unless I screwed something else up. So we'll come in here and let's just put it in ascending and let's look for something that is in there. 67. So that'll be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It'll be at location 15 if this worked correctly. So 67 was found at location 15. All right. Anybody who stuck with me today, thank you for sticking with me. All right, I'm going to clean this program up a little bit. After I do, I'm going to take the entire thing that I did today, which were this thing that's called discussion, which talked about the test, these 4 array console programs and the 1 array GUI program. I'm going to put them into a GitHub repo that'll be called arrays, unless I have one already called arrays, but I don't think I do. I'll do that. Tomorrow, I'm going to jump right at the beginning of class, I'm going to go through chapter 8, right from the start. Once we finish that, and that'll take 1 to 2 hours, once we finish that, we will then go into looking at, we might do 8.1 and 8.2 together. All right, and then all you'll have to do for your homework on here will be, when they're actually much easier than 8.1 and 8.2. You will also on here, this will be the first time you will have to do a project, and that'll be project 2.2. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. All right. If once we get done, there's any time left in the period, it'll be lab. On Wednesday morning, 2 days from now, I will send you the pretest by 7 a.m. I will go over the pretest between 8 a.m. and 8:15 a.m. You will have until approximately 10 o'clock to complete that. Then I will do the pretest in front of you. Finally, on Thursday, the last day of this week, all right, you will have your 3rd hands-on test for chapters 7 and 8. All right. I will talk to you tomorrow at 8:05. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks for sticking around.